Hey guys, I have got a special privilege today. I'm going to introduce you to my oldest friend. We've known one another since the age of 4, going to school together in grade school. He is now a professor at Durham College. He's a trades advocate, podcaster, and YouTuber. He's got a show entitled Trades Educator Podcast, and he's building a community for educators because he believes that there's a gap there that students really need assistance for. He obviously wants to help people to do the right thing, get them in the right direction, but really to be able to see the road ahead when it comes to getting into the trades and building a career or business in trades. I'd like to introduce to you today my good friend, Edward Logan.
Edward, thank you so much for coming on the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, Neil. It's been a great long time no see.
That's right. Well, for the one of the things that if people are watching that they don't know is that you and I go way back, all the way back to 4 years of age, starting in junior kindergarten. We went to the same school, and I think this is a really interesting conversation that we get to have today, talking about maybe a little bit about what life was like growing up, and what we thought it was going to be like, and what it's been. Does that sound like a road that we should be going down?
Yeah, I think so, because I even think a lot now, just in retrospect, as I got older, about things that I think about now that I didn't realize back then.
Yeah.
In our growing up period and stuff like that. So we can talk about that for sure.
Well, you were just mentioning about the boys, about your kids being fed and hopefully alive. No, sorry, alive. Hopefully they'll be fed too.
Just getting home from teaching and then coming to make sure that they're all breathing and there's no bloodshed or no fighting. And I don't know if they've eaten yet. I've seen some wrappers of chocolate bars and chips out there, but I don't know if they've actually had anything healthy yet today. Not that I'm a specimen of health myself, but we'll see shortly after we're done. I'll see if they're. I'll get them ready so that before the wife gets home, so I don't get in trouble, as they say, right? So
right. Well, I remember I lived in this one apartment building, and before I was getting married, the security guard, he says to me, "Oh, you're getting married? Oh, yeah, I'm getting married." He's like, "Okay, well, I got to tell you this. I got to give you some advice." I was like, "Okay, what are you gonna?" He was like, two words. I got 2 words for you. You remember these 2 words, you'll have a good life. You'll have a good marriage. I was like, okay. What wisdom? What sage wisdom is this security guard gonna give me? Who I'm pretty sure, when we're not looking, is drinking and sitting at the desk. But come on, let's hear what he's gonna say. And he said 2 words: yes, dear. Just remember that. Yes, dear. Whatever she says, yes, dear.
Well, I remember being told to just happy wife, happy life. And I guess it's all along the same lines. As long as our better half, as they say, are happy, and everything else will be smooth. Or there won't be everything else will be perfect. So I think it's worked out to be actually sound advice that you got. Now that I think about my relationship with my wife, and I'm sure you're probably the same with yours, right? You think it's kind of funny, right? You think it's kind of funny advice that here's somebody, like you said, who you like. I don't really know this person. Here they are, the security guard. And I hate to say it, but sometimes we judge book by the cover. Like, who's this person to give me advice, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes those are the people that you might want to be out looking for, because they've had that lived experience, right? And then all of a sudden, it's like our parents telling our stuff when we were younger. We would say, "Okay, yeah, mom, yeah, dad," and as we got older, we went, "Oh, okay, so they were right, right? So they were right, right?" So
it's true. It's crazy. I actually have noticed that, I've got 2 girls. My first 2 kids, I've got 4 kids, and my 2 girls are they're getting older, and so now I say yes, dear, to any of them, to my wife, to my first daughter. I say yes, dear.
Yes, dear. Whatever you want. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what it is there's definitely a difference between the genders and stuff like that. There
Yeah.
is a difference, right? There is a difference in but I mean, I have three boys, so it's a lot different, right? I always joke with a friend of mine. He's a plumber too. He doesn't teach like I do, but he has three girls, and they're about the same age as my boys, roughly, right? And I used to say to him, "Oh, how lucky are you because you have four women that take care of you." And I used to see pictures, stuff you post pictures of on social media. Here's the girls are doing his hair and giving him facials and all. I said, that's great. I said, I'm got boys who I'm trying to break up fights for. Yeah, we got sports to play and whatnot. I said, but. And he goes, no. He goes, don't worry. When your boys get older and my girls get older, I'm gonna be worried about my girls because I remember how I was as a boy back in the day and stuff. Right? He said it's gonna change for you. You're gonna actually be. Our roles, our worries are gonna reverse a little bit. I said, I don't know. I don't know. I think the worry will still be there because we're parents and we do care and we want to make sure that they don't get any trouble. Right? They succeed and so basically survive the day. Right? Survive the day that they're living. So.
Well, it's true. It's true. I will say this: having two girls and then two boys, I've gotten a chance to see the massive difference between having girls and boys, and early on there's definitely a huge differences. Girls, for starters, they try to imitate their mother, which means that they like to clean, they like to cook, they like to be motherly, take care, whereas boys, and I'm sure your boys, as you've watched them grow up, have been like this. They just want to play. Never mind all the rest. Cleaning, putting the toilet seat down.
God, don't even talk about that. It makes it worse though. I'm a plumber. You know how many times my toilet's plugged, and I'm a plumber. The three boys. Ollie gets that call, honey, the toilet. I'm like, oh my God, can you guys not flush? Can you guys not flush a couple of times at least while you're doing your business on the toilet? And I'm like, here, I know I'm a plumber, but I said I'm not getting paid for this. I should be doing this at home. Like we know, you guys know what you should be doing, right? But I laugh too because even my oldest one the other day, he's in high school, 16, right? And my wife was on him for a couple of days to empty the dishwasher. And she said, I'm going to hold my guns. I'm not going to, he's going to empty it. The dishes are piling up. And eventually the dishes ran out. And he's like saying to me, where's the spoon? Come on, you guys. Where's the spoon? I'm looking for a clean spoon. I said, well, that's because you haven't emptied the dishwasher yet. I said, we're only asking you to do half the job. Empty it. We'll fill it. Like just to do something. I said, do something to help mom and dad. And he's like, well, I'm busy all day. I'm working. I said, what do you mean you're working? I'm playing video games all day. I'm like, that's work. I don't know if that's working or not, but I said, I'm sure you can find some time. But yeah, it's a different experience. But I'm hoping slowly but surely that as they get older, as they get the little nuggets and then they start to listen and then they start to do a little bit more, right? So, I mean, one day it's going to come. So they're going to have to do it on their own eventually.
Well, I have to share this with you. I heard something about. I was watching this show, and they were talking about the gamification of education, and they were talking about the need to understand how kids think now and how to incentivize them, and so. Talking about how, when you're playing video games and you just get this continual opportunity to start again, try again. And you do these different combinations, you get bonuses and all this kind of stuff. And so there's this huge incentive. They're continually getting reinforced for making the mistakes, trying something different, doing all these things.
Yeah.
Whereas then they come into our classrooms, and we can talk about this a little bit more later, but or into the home and we're dealing with them and we're telling them, you have to do this, you have to do that. There's no bonuses, there's none of that. And so something that I got out of that was because they did go on to talk about how do you incentivize them, right? How do you create those bonus opportunities? And so my kids don't like it, but I'll tell you a secret that I've done with them, and that was I put up a board with the different chores that are available, and the amount of electronic time that you can have. So if you load the dishwasher, you get 30 minutes. If you unload, you get 30 minutes. If you brush your teeth, take a shower, make your bed, you get an hour, 20 minutes for each of them.
Yeah.
And because then you get to kind of reinforce the areas you want, and then it's on them. You want time to play video games? Absolutely. Here's the board. Go choose. Go do whatever you want. And off they go. And okay, what's the least amount of work I can do and get the most amount of time? Of time. Well, it just so happens to be the areas that we want them to work on, right? Because at the end of the day, if they exercise, we give extra time for that. If they if they're doing reading, you get double time for that. If you go outside and play, you're going to get the same amount of time on just finding ways to motivate them. And it's been really interesting. The hardest thing is keeping track of it, but between Yumi and the fence post, I'm not really too worried about it at the end of the day. If it gets them engaged in trying to do something, I don't know. That's something that we've been trying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure lots of people did like similar things probably back in the day, whether it be like allowance money. I give you a little bit of money, right, a little bit of pocket money. I mean, I guess it's more back in. It would probably be more appropriate back in our day when pocket money we were looking for was not to buy video games. Let's say they were $90. We were looking just to go to the corner convenience store to get a popsicle or a little bag of chips or something, right? Something little, something small, right? And so we get the little bit of change here and there for doing stuff, but. Yeah, sometimes I get worried. It's like I get worried too, but the rewarding. It's like they have to realize that eventually these things are. Hopefully, they create the habits that because eventually that reward, it'll be like a different kind of reward, I guess, when you get older. I guess in a way, but I'm getting reward. Yeah, I got to go to work every day, and I got to be at work at a certain time. And I'm not getting video time anymore, video game time, or pocket money like the pocket money. Yeah, I'm getting a paycheck and stuff like that. Right, I have to and stuff like that. So I guess in a way, maybe the incentives does kind of continue a little bit in some ways.
Well, the way. I mean, again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not any of these things. I'm just experimenting with my kids. So full disclaimer. But one of the thought processes behind that is, like in real life, you don't get to have the relaxing time until you've done the work, until you've done what has to get done. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that it's reinforcing the get this stuff done and then you can relax. Get this stuff done, then you can relax. You can go play video games. Get this stuff done, and then the leisure time comes, because if you're always fighting to get the leisure time, then the work doesn't get done. And I'm hoping that it reinforces that, but it maybe it's a study to find out later on in life how much I messed that up. And let's be honest, we mess it up all the time. So
yeah. Well, I was going to say, since you're saying we're sharing, I'm gonna jump in and share some with you too, because I don't know if it was from you or from other friends that we have from back in the day. That the one thing I didn't think of that I'm thinking about these days that I didn't think about then is because I knew this. I was younger. Perspective at the time is that when we grew up in Scarborough, right? I remember.
Whereabouts were you? Where did you? Because I never went to your house.
Yeah, because I was just south of Ellesmere, just off of Scarborough Golf Club Road there.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
And but I remember because of our school zone area was quite a big area, right? So it was like northeast and all around pretty much the school, right? A fair distance of an area that covered, so students were coming everywhere. And I remember growing up, and I never thought about it. And somebody said to me, and our friends saying, "Hey, hey, Ed, you were you were one of the rich ones because you lived in a bungalow that was a bungalow house, right?" And I thought back then, and I don't know if it's just, I kind of think about things now about people talk about like white privilege and all this stuff, right? And I just don't know, maybe I was just young and not, I was just a kid, so I didn't really know because I remember my parents buying stuff for us, and I'd be like, oh, it's coming from Byway and Bargain Harold's, all these cheap stores back in the day. So and my dad had his own business, but I thought we were not really well off per se, right? And I remember people, like maybe it was yourself or other people we knew, and I thought, oh, maybe, it's a perspective. Like we all here, we all are together. The other part that I realized back then that I appreciate back then and still to now was the fact that the makeup of our area was well diverse, right? People from different backgrounds. Most of us, whether ourselves, we were first, like I'm not a first immigrant, but my parents were immigrants, right? Or some of us, our parents were immigrants, and we were too. Some of our friends were also immigrants, right? So, I'd like to look back now and kind of reflect on those things and what I've learned, and what I thought back then. It's just it's amazing, right? And again, it may be, like I said, because of age, being too young to appreciate that. But it makes me think. I was like, okay, I don't think maybe I should have been more appreciative of what I had back then, too, in a way.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that for myself, I looked at you as being rich. I, of course, I looked. You had a house. Oh my goodness! If you owned a house, you were rich in my mind, right? We grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment, right? When my sister was born, we put up these bookshelves across the dining room, and the dining room got to be her bedroom. We put a flag over the kitchen area, so she had a room, and real ghetto, but that's what we did. She got a room.
Yeah, you do what you got to do.
So I'll tell you this. I want to declare this on the show, and that is because many times I'll talk about racism that I experienced growing up, and including in grade school. And I want to say clearly to everyone listening that Edward Logan never put me down in all of those years for either the color of my skin, my socioeconomic status, none of those things. You have that distinction, Edward, that you never did any of those things, and I never got that experience from you that you ever looked down on me, which I can't say for everyone, but even though I love them all now, you never were a person that I ever had to experience that way, which was rare for the people that I grew up with.
Yeah. I mean, especially back, that was obviously years ago, right? So there's a lot of things have changed over the years, and some things haven't changed, right? But but I think in some ways, some ways with even my immediate upbringing with my parents, like kind of, even though my parents were both Scottish, but both white male and female and stuff like that, but they always brought me up to appreciate everybody. Everybody's right. Everybody, it's about the person. It's not about all the other stuff, right? It's not about, how much money does that person have, or where are they from, whatever. Is it a good person you can hang out, who's going to be a good friend to you? You're going to have a good time and all that stuff. And I think that's one thing. I think it started early on with me. That's continued to this day, where it's like, that's why I try to listen to everybody, because I'm like, I don't know, because someone might have something like we were mentioning off the top there, but earlier about different vices and stuff. You never know. Like I've learned too as a teacher, right? That even more so, don't judge a book by its cover, kind of thing. Don't meet the person, understand the person, and I mean, we can't live all I definitely can't say I lived a different experience that maybe you had, right? For sure, as far as being people being racist, or whatever, towards you, right? But at least I can still listen and understand and try to. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing for me these days. That I'm actually really. I think I'm a good person, like you said, hopefully. But I'm really trying to focus on these days. You know what? I can't just. I gotta do more by action. I gotta. When I'm teaching my students, I'm trying to lift them up as students, right? Because I want them to succeed. So I should be out. If I'm really supporting people, if I'm really have no biases and stuff, then what can I do to make things better, right? And and sometimes you can't just. Some people say it's like if you just say stuff, it's just like lip service. You're not really right doing anything. So that's what I'm trying to do. I got all these focuses that I'm trying to focus on these days. But
yeah. Well, how did it kind of go from there? I mean, let's playing on the school grounds. I remember this. You were a great soccer player. In our school, you were a great soccer player, and then we did all of that kind of stuff. How did all of this stuff come about? Where now here you are a champion for people, for your students, trying to pass on advice. How did you got to fill in some gaps for us?
Yeah, I think it's just the maybe because that's what I kind of had along the way. Like, whether it be people who were older, like maybe like mentors, like, good teachers and stuff along the way. Right.
Yeah.
Or even just having friends like yourself or other ones in the group who were, treating people right and stuff. Right. And it's like, and
who's your favorite teacher?
Well, we're due for another beer, but it's Mrs. Seawack, good old Miss Seawack. She's still around, and I'm hoping to get another pint with you guys as well again.
Maybe this time, Mrs. Seawack.
Yeah, Miss Seawack. She was. Well, she had a lot of lived experience too back in her history from where she came. So, and I think with that, sharing that kind of stuff too.
Do you remember her talking about the war?
Yeah, I remember all that. Yeah, I remember that stuff. And that, the funny part was that stuff, it wasn't necessarily related to what we were talking in the class. I don't remember, because I know that back in our day, at least at a certain point, we had an art teacher, Mr. Bailey, for history. He was doing a lot of history, especially Canadian history, right? But
shout out to Mr. Bailey.
Bailey, right on. But I think it wasn't until high school we got to that more history, like the world kind of history, right? But I remember just kind of like in awe, like listening to the story, thinking, wow, right? Just because I remember her talking about stuff about being scared and running and hiding, whatever, all this kind of stuff, right? I'm like, wow, right? And I think too, just hearing from other people that I think that opened up other people who were maybe, there's a few people over the years, and I can't remember if it was all in elementary school or not, but who would share their kind of experience about how they got to Canada, right? And the stuff they had to go through. I mean, even give a shout out to my wife too here, Blanca, that, she comes from Panama, but she tells me about the times when they were under dictatorship and stuff, right? And the kind of stuff, right? So I'm like, and I think the more experience that I hear of that over time too, that's probably helped shape me too. Like, okay, there's probably been times where I've been kind of selfish and say, life sucks. I don't have it all. I don't have, this person has that. And why don't I have that? And then I'm like, you know what? You got to be appreciative for what you don't realize what you got. You got to take stock of what you do have, right? And because my biggest thing is that I always say to people that, there's always someone better off than you, but there's also lots of people worse off than you are. I think we're all kind of like, there's always someone better, right? There's always someone better. You can always look at it and say, I want to be the biggest, richest CEO of the world. Like, look at that guy there. He's got billions and billions of dollars. How great is that, right? And but then there's other people that you can see that are just struggling. Like, I mean, just driving around where I live, I saw the other day, I was out with my wife, and there's a tent pitched on a tree, under a tree on a grassy area near a plaza. And like, I said to my wife, that's somebody living there. That's someone who doesn't have a home, who's just living. I mean, thankfully the weather is at least ideal for being outside, per se, give or take the real hot days. But I'm still thinking, there's somebody else that's, which way they're down their luck. They're down their luck. They don't have a home, obviously. They might not have any family. Who knows what there's, there's so many. There's a story behind everybody, I guess, as well, right? There's a story behind everybody. So that's why I always take stock. And every once in a while, I kind of think about what I got. I go, okay, I got my boys, I got my wife. I have a nice house that I like, all these different things. I have a nice job, everything that I enjoy, right? And then I go, you know what? If I don't have that one thing, it's okay, right? It's not the end of the world. Doesn't mean I can't still strive for it, but I'm not going to complain about it, right? So,
yeah.
So
that's, and as they say, an attitude of gratitude. There's something powerful in being able to look at what you have and appreciate it.
Yeah, right? And it's like I said, it doesn't mean that you can't still strive for those goals of I want this. I want to try achieve this or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. It just don't be disappointed. Don't be. I think the word I'm looking for also. Don't be jealous of like other people, right? Like don't be jealous. Like and then realize, people have some people have stuff, but they've worked hard for it. And you maybe don't know the grind. Like I mean, if people look at me today that knew me when I was younger. I know a bunch of our friends, especially some of the ones that we went to high school with later on. We didn't go to grade school with, and somebody was like, "Oh my God, you're like a success story. Like you're like wow, like I'm like And I think to myself, I think back to high school days as we start to reminisce a bit here, and I hate to mention it, but we went to a Catholic school that we had to wear a uniform, and I remember wearing army fatigues, right, as my kind of dress down and stuff, and right, like, and I wasn't necessarily doing too well in school. Because I think when I went to, I don't know about how your experience, when I think about the high school experience, it was more that all these schools joined together, and then some of us who were friends, we weren't friends anymore. But they became, it became like different kind of cliques in the high school. Yeah. I'm sure it's kind of the same these days. I'm sure whether it be different nationalities got together, different economic backgrounds got together, whether you're like more of a sporty person or like a jock, I guess you could say, the typical type of stuff, right? And I kind of found myself on the fringes I became more and more shy, surprisingly enough. And nowadays I'm probably not so shy, and I don't stop talking. But yeah, I just think about like I can imagine that people say, "Oh, this is what happened to Ed." Right.
Yeah.
But my path wasn't a straight line. It wasn't like I was at a high school and later on I became a professor or a plumber. Like I went to college and I failed, and then I dropped out of college, and then I worked for a while. I worked for couple different places until I decided where I was going, and I went back to school and I worked full time at the same time. Right. So like it didn't. So someone looks at me and they goes, "Oh, I wish it didn't come easy. It didn't come easy where I'm at."
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a thing though, because it's taught me so much. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, Neil, but experiencing the fact that you don't have enough money in the bank account, where you're going to be paying the mortgage or you're going to be getting groceries and stuff. I've had points about that when we've been married, where we were like, and I was doing stuff like borrowing money from those payday loan type of things. Which are outrageous. If anybody knows about them, they're outrageous, but we got by it, like we got through it, but we learned how to spend and be cheap about things, right? Be frugal, I guess the word would be better, and how to live, right? So now as we live, we do buy stuff now, but we think about stuff. We try and keep those old ways of thinking, and how we used to shop for groceries and all that, the techniques that we used back then. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a crazy journey, so to say the least. A very learning journey, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all of that. I literally was walking through as you were sharing. I was thinking about the different places, and I remember that we kind of lost contact in high school, different directions, and then I ended up switching high schools. But one of the things that, as you were talking about all the different cliques, I started thinking about all the different things that we used to do back then that, could you imagine if we did them now? Like, do you remember Valentine's Day in school that you could send a Hershey's Kiss or something to people?
Yeah, I think it was like through the student council. You could, you could send it, right? Or there was a Christmas time. I think you could do like a candy cane kind of gram.
Candy gram, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And do you remember? Oh my goodness, what did we call it? Did we have it? Did we have Slave Day? Do you remember Slave Day?
I think we did. Yeah, that's right. We did. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know would fly today, but yeah.
Do you remember Slave Day?
Yeah. Well, I don't remember it too. That there were, and especially
tell us about Slave Day.
Yeah, tell us about that. Well, we get to auction off students, and they volunteer to be auctioned off. We were raising money. It's for a good cause. I forget what the good cause was. It was for like charity or raising money.
United Way, I think, or UNICEF. One of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if that would go. And I try and think. It's hard to really think now. I mean, if I saw some pictures of stuff, I probably would see stuff that would be really inappropriate when it comes to that. I'm sure people took it to the real extreme. Like so.
Well, I remember there were a couple of rules. Like the person they were allowed to be exempt from their classes, and they could go with you to your classes, and they could hold your books. You couldn't do anything really all that crazy, but they'd sit with you in class. They could hold your books from class to class, some of those kind of things. And I actually remember it being a fun time, and I remember thinking, I wish I had money, because I didn't have any money to be able to, you imagine auctioning and getting the hot chick and being able to have her with because then I'd be cool.
Yeah, right on. Wow, that would be just like the movie Can't Buy Me Love, was it? The guy get fought the girl, right? Yeah, right on. So
we are apparently on the same geek level. It's perfect.
Yes, yeah. I just remember back then thinking, like, I have a hard time remembering some of the names now, but I remember sitting there going, I want to ask that girl out. And I did that back in grade school a little bit. I mean, it really wasn't in grade school. It was kind of silly stuff too. And I'm sure high school was kind of silly too, but where you really,
who did you ask out in grade school?
I don't know. Well, I guess not really unofficially in grade school. You wouldn't really ask any. Yeah, you're going out, but you're not actually going anywhere. But or you kissed or whatever. But But I remember myself like I wanted to, like, when it came to grade 12 and graduation time, I thought I should ask this girl out. I'm gonna ask this girl out. A couple of them. I narrowed it down to one, and I thought, okay, this person. And I thought, I didn't want to get rejected. I said, I don't know, because I was in a way such an outlier where I found out later on some people thought I was snobby, and some people, right? Because when you don't talk too much, maybe you're just snobby, right? You don't want to talk to anybody. Right. But I would hope they realized that I wasn't really talking to anybody, so maybe I'm not so snobby, right? But for me, like, the high school memories are, I know I talked to other friends of ours that went to Pope, especially that. Pope John Paul II back in the day.
Shout out.
I know the name has changed ever since he passed away, but I don't remember what the name is in good old Scarborough. But yeah, for me, it was like, they used to tell me, I was like, memories. I'm like, I didn't really have any good memories. For me, it was like a bad time, right? So for me personally, I didn't do well with my marks. I became really lazy. I was probably because when you think that someone who doesn't really talk to anybody, doesn't really got anything going on, that you got lots of time to do homework, but then I really didn't do the homework, so it's kind of weird that I wouldn't have. But I don't know if you know. I don't know. Just thinking about who I wanted to talk to that I never talked to. I guess I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't even know what I was thinking. I remember when we got older. Like, I know you went to Neil McNeil after, was it? Oh, was you?
I went from Pope for a couple of years, and then I went to Woburn Collegiate.
Oh, Woburn, yeah, right. Good old Woburn, yeah. Right next to for St. Thomas More, right on. Yeah, shout out to St. Thomas More and Woburn, right on. No, but I even when we got to the older grades, you know how when you got to the older grades, if you had all your credits, you might actually have a spare. And I had the spare was like right in the wrong part of the day, right, where I still had class after. So there was times where I would just take off after that, because when you got to grade 12, I think I was at that time old enough where I could sign myself out. Right. You got to the age, I think there was the last part of grade 12 where most people could sign themselves out. Yeah. But I remember, like, I think it was grade 12. I took accounting too, and I thought this is one of the things I always thought I was going to do because I loved math, but I wasn't doing so good at math in school at the time. And I started skipping that class. I was like, this class is so boring. The teacher is so boring. And I just remember going at the back of the school, down the back of the hill through, Mornell Court there.
Yes.
And catching the bus right on Ellesmere, just to avoid the connection, right? The one-stop connection. And I laugh to this day because people used to tell me, why are you going through there? It's Mornell Court. Anyways, right? It's dangerous, right? But anyways.
Yeah.
But I mean, back in the day, there was some stuff going on there, but
well, you have to
anyways.
watch out for the Mornell boys.
Yeah,
shout out to the Mornell boys.
Right on. Yeah, maybe we'll shout out to the Untouchables there too, and everybody else, all the gangsters. But yeah, I think I started like missing stuff. Like you weren't there, but in grade 12, I didn't graduate on time. I actually had to go to summer school.
Okay,
and so I went to. I actually failed 2 credits, so I had to go do the 2 credits in summer school because I was going off to college, right? So I was in a rush. Like I needed those 2 credits. And that was the 2 prerequisites I needed for the program. Plus, obviously, you needed the graduation, the diploma, right? And so that's the first time I ever did summer school too. And oh god, thankfully, it was the first and last time I learned my lesson on that one. Holy smokes! And but it was weird because it set me off on a different. I was off for a bit, but then I was back on the same kind of schedule as everybody else, right? So some people were going back for grade 13 or OEC, as it was called back then for us. Yeah. And some of us weren't. Some of us were headed to college, right, from grade 12. So it was definitely a different time. But I remember at that time, I don't know about yourself, Neil, at that time, I just know that when I was like thinking as grade 12 was approaching and they started thinking, where are you going to be heading? You're going to go to grade 13? Go to university because you have to do that to go to university, or you're going to college. And I was thinking, and I remember seeing outside the guidance counselor area, they would have the table set up with all the little booklets for all the colleges and universities, and the typical thing like you do online these days. It's like a little blurb, like a paragraph or whatever, right, about the program and what kind of careers, right? And I'm like thinking to myself, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if you knew what you wanted to do then. As high school went through them. I think when I was younger, I think I knew what I wanted to do. But when I got to high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. And I was like trying to think to myself, I got to choose something for the rest of my life now. Yeah. And I thought, how am I going to choose something for the rest of my life? Like, I don't even know. Like, I've had no experience. The only experience I've had is in classrooms. I know we had we had co-op back in the day where people could do co-ops, like go to jobs and get credit for it. Yeah, and I don't know what else was back then too. What else they did back then? I just don't remember it being much. And I thought to myself, how do you have experience to know what you want to do?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and that's why I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's why I was going to say. That's why I think it's good these days. Like now that I've learned from my own son going to high school, but there's so many different opportunities that they can get credit for, that they can experience different things, whether it be a skilled trade or do like a dual credit with a college. So like on a program, it's only one course, only taking classes in high school. You don't know, right? You're learning from your mom or dad or family members. Oh, I do this for a living. You're like, is it good? Right? You don't really know. You're not even at their job, so you don't know if it really is good or not, right? Is it something that I can do, right? So, but yeah, sorry, I'm gonna cut you off there. Go ahead, Neil, buddy.
No. I was gonna say, I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I mean, when I switched schools. For a couple of things. First of all, I moved out young. I was 17 and I moved out, and then I was back home for about 6 months, and then I moved back out for good from that point on. So, in terms of what was I going to do afterwards? Well, I don't have any money, and good luck. I remember working at. Do you remember the Mexican restaurant back there, Chi-Chi's? Behind
right on Markham, by the building.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I remember working there as a part-time job, and I was a busboy, and I remember this one guy, this guy coming in. He had just graduated from university, and he had a Bachelor of Arts and Sciences, and they said, "Here, Neil, we'd like you to train this guy on how to clean tables." I was 14 years old when I had this happen, and I'm training this guy on how to clean tables, and he's just come back from university, and he's reporting to me, and I'm teaching him, and that stuck with me, so that as I was trying to figure it out, I was like, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do general arts and sciences because I'm going to end up being a busboy, working at a Mexican restaurant. And I do remember this because at that point I was running with a gang and everything at that point from the neighborhood. And to me, the best job I could see was being a drug dealer, to be honest with you. That's what I was thinking. Oh, okay. Clearly I'm not going to be able to do these other things, or I just couldn't even imagine. I got to be honest, I couldn't even imagine any of those other things. I didn't have anyone in my circle that did any important jobs or anything like that. Definitely not my mom and my dad. And then, so by and large, I was like, well, I want to make money. Drug dealers make money and they get respect. That seemed like oh man, I can't believe I'm going to say this. That seemed like a smart thing to do at the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, but you think about it, that's why a lot of people talk these days, when you want, you're just talking to other people professionally about if you want to get into this, you want to get into that, surround yourself with the right people, right? Right. And I mean, you were surrounded by the people. Well, the right people were the drug dealer, right? Unfortunately, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
And they were your right people, and these didn't know that they weren't the right people, right? That this might not be a great career because it might be a short career and a short life, maybe, right? Potentially, right? And
no, I'm gonna know I'm gonna do it right. There's a way to do this right, and I'm gonna do it right. Like I'm gonna be the one drug dealer in the world that never gets caught.
Yeah, there's gonna be and live forever and just and right off into the sunset, right? No problems, no shootings, nothing like that. That's not gonna happen. Yeah. It's all gonna be good, right? It's gonna live a good life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's amazing the things we come up with.
Yeah, go ahead.
When it comes to you, I think that it completely makes sense in that stage, right? Like we're trying to figure out what do we want to do for the rest of our lives, and you don't really know what's going on at that point in time, right? Like I don't know.
Because I've told this before, but I would never thought I was going to get into the trades, like plumbing or any trade for that matter. Because as I joke, I remember my dad telling me not to get into the trades. And my dad that's what he did. He was a flooring guy, so he was always on his knees. Back in our day, was more about carpet on the floor, right? People were hiding the hardwood floors up with carpet. He knew how to do like tiling, so like ceramic tiling and other stuff. And he had other parts. This is from Scotland, so he had other parts to his trade, like drapery, refinishing furniture. But mostly his business was focused mainly around the flooring. So he had a hard physical life basically, because especially on the knees. He used to always say that because he always had big knees, so he used to have elephant knees because they were so big and swollen from being on your knees so much, like on the concrete and hard floors, which is probably not good for you. But I remember hearing saying that, and then it wasn't until later on. I don't know if it was once I decided that I'm going to go. And while I was working one of my jobs out at the airport in Toronto, I was a supervisor for like a contracting company that handled a large number of aircraft for different airlines. And a lot of people don't know that the airlines don't have their own people. They usually get contracted people from the local. Anyways, it's a long story short. But I was a supervisor. I was actually before I left, I was the acting duty manager for a company, but it didn't really pay all that great. People think it's a glamorous. It is kind of some ways it is a glamorous job because people are outside most of the time. I was pushing back, towing big aircraft around. I was the guy who would bring in the aircraft in, marshaling them in and stuff. Fun kind of job, right? The sucky part of the job was if you're doing that, you're loading the plane with baggage too, so that kind of sucked. Yeah. But when I was there, and then I decided that my wife that. My wife was my wife then, and I said, I saw this thing for a private college, and we've all seen these private colleges around, and they were offering skilled trade training. It was like a full-time program for 3 months, and I said, I'm going to do it. Cost me an arm or leg. I can't remember how much it cost, but it cost quite a few $1,000s. And I said, I'm going to do this, but I can't leave my job right now because we need the money, right? So I got my boss at the time. I said, one day in 3 months from now, I'm going to be leaving you. But before I leave, I'm going to be taking schooling. So can you help me out and accommodate me? Because I was a supervisor or manager at the time. I was, whatever shift I was working. I said, is it possible to cut my shift by about an hour every day to give me time to go to school in the morning, and travel, and of course eat. And then I would take actually a nap in the parking lot of the airport parking lot every day. This was in the summertime, so it's like boiling hot, air conditioning running in the car, sleeping, having a nap, and then I would go to work and I would supervise, right? And I've always take whatever I've been working when I was younger, or even then or now, I take my job seriously. So even though I know I was leaving, I was still taking it seriously. Like I'm not here to screw up. I'm still the supervisor. I'm gonna do the best job, make sure everything runs perfectly, right? Even though I know I'm leaving. Yeah. And I did that for 3 months. It was hard as hell. Like it took a lot out of me. I mean, I don't know if I would be able to do it now because I was obviously a little bit younger then, but still I was making a change in my life a little bit later. And I was doing trade. So basically changing a second career change at the time, right? And once I did that, then I went off into the, kind of the workforce, and eventually did some change. I was working what they call non-union. I went to work for a union, and yeah. But eventually, it turned out really well for me, thankfully, right? And and that's why I always I tell them I'm a teacher, right? As I do my full-time job, but as I'm there with my students, and they're like today, where I have them in our shop labs, and they're doing hands-on labs and projects. As they're doing them, I'm in their ear talking like their mom or their dad, right? Because I think I've found over the years, a lot of them listen to me, even though I'm the old guy. I'm not as hip as we used to be, Neil. As I talk about different songs, they don't remember them. So, but as years pass here, a lot of them don't remember them. Like, okay, I guess I'm getting old now. But I try and as you might have called me the other day, the plumbing whisperer. But I kind of try to whisper in their ear, right? And I say to them, "Hey, this is my little bit of advice for you. I think you should do this, right?" And I even tell them a story. It's funny because that you're into mortgage and stuff. The story that I tell them is when I was like 19 or so, when I dropped out of college, I was working. I was living at home, and I was making money. So I didn't really have. I had, I think, a couple little bills I had to pay, and I had to pay my parents rent because if I wasn't going to school, I had to pay them rent to live in the house. And so, but I still have money, right? Whatever it was I was making, I still have money. And back then, I always, for some reason, I had an interest in real estate. And it's funny that I don't own all these properties now because I had an interest back then. And I would look in the paper, and I think it was the Toronto Star every weekend, and they would have a thing on the home section. It'd be all the like new homes coming soon, whatever, right? Such and such price. And I always thought about doing it, and I never did it. And to this day, I kick myself in the butt thinking, if I could tell young Eddie something now, I'd say go buy that house when you were thinking about it. And so I tell them, I say, look, if you have an opportunity, I know times are different now with prices a lot more expensive, right? But I said, if there's opportunity for something like that that you see, don't let it pass you by. Try it, do it. I mean, the worst I could have said back in the day was I bought the house and then I could have turned around and sold it if I thought it was a problem, right? Yeah. Because I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I didn't know. I had a cousin of mine who bought a house. He had started a trade and he bought a house with a friend, and they went together and they split it. They actually lived there. I think they actually rented part of the house out. So they were quite, for their age, I guess they're quite smart about what they did. But eventually they had agreement that if one of them wanted to leave, they could either buy the person out, say I'm leaving, and the other person wanted to stay, or they could just agree to sell it and say, okay, we're going to sell it all together. I can't remember what they did, but I think to myself, damn, I should have done that, right? That's an opportunity, right, that we missed out. But I think we all miss those opportunities, right? We all have those things that passes by. I know my dad told me one time, he told me when I was a kid, and I said to him, "You're crazy, Dad. I can't believe you do this." He said that, I don't remember by Markham and Ellesmere too, by the 4-1, the McDonald's there.
Oh, yes.
My dad had a chance. I don't know if it was that one. I think it was that one. He had opportunity was presented to him to get that franchise with somebody else. And my dad said back in the day, what, a hamburger place? What are they going to do? A hamburger place? What they, what? Like that was like in the early days when it was like, it was hardly as popular, I guess, or known about, right? And I said, Dad, you crazy, man? First of all, because I love going to McDonald's back in the day, but I said, holy Dad, if you would have got that. He goes, yeah, I'm kicking my ass now. He goes, I'm kicking my butt now. I said, I can't believe.
Oh my goodness. That location, they of course built the college right across the street.
Yeah.
They built the office buildings, they built the condos, they built all of those things all right around the McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in the day, it was when I was a kid. They're going there. It was busy, and I
Yeah.
thought to myself, "Dad, what were you thinking? It's so busy." I'm sure now
Oh yeah.
it's even busier, right? So, and but he goes, "Yeah." He goes, I didn't know much about franchises and stuff, and he goes, "I was afraid to make that plunge of that investment,
Yeah.
right?" So, and I can
Wow.
see it, right? Having a young
Yeah.
family and stuff, and not knowing what to do, right? You're like, do I do it or do I not do it? So I always try and whisper
Well,
in the ear, like give them some free advice. So
you know what I would say about that, or that I perhaps learned, is that there there are opportunities that are going to come by that you want to take at that time because you can afford to fail. You can afford to mess up on it because you can recover. You've got time to recover. And because later on, the longer you go in life, the less risk you can afford to take because you just don't have the time to be able to recoup it the same way. But I also say that because I didn't buy my first house till I was like 30 years old. Um, as we mentioned, I didn't even think it was possible to own a house, to be honest with you, because we grew up in an apartment. I'd been living in apartments, all that kind of stuff. Houses are for rich people. Oh, wait, you mean I can afford a house? I didn't even ask the question. It didn't occur to me that until I was around that age, right? And a lot of that had to do with getting married, having kids, and then I started asking questions that I wasn't asking prior to that. Had I been asking those questions earlier, I probably would have already had a house and probably would have been so much further along, right? Like you miss those opportunities because I don't know, you're just doing other things. You're thinking about other stuff along the way.
yeah,
So
and
I
it's
think
true, like
it's
you said.
great that you're able to do that for them, for your students.
Yeah, and I try like I just try and give them little tidbits. It might be silly things like I say, okay, how young are you? I said, go. I said, if you have a chance, go travel, experience some stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make an investment, whatever, if you can do it, whatever. Like just little things. Like I'm just like because I know that some of them, like I've learned over time that they most of them appreciate it, and even though I am the old guy, like their parents, that for some reason I'm the teacher, so I'm somebody different, so they will listen, right? And so if I could just I drop a few little nuggets here and there. I'm like, take what you will and take what you don't want. It's up to you, right? It's still your life. I'm not telling you what to do, still, right? But these are things that I did that worked out that I thought were good. These are things I maybe missed. I wish I would have done, but who knows, right? It's still down to the individual person, the situation that you're in, right? So you don't.
Is that like a plumber joke? The plumber drops a few nuggets.
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
Drop a few nuggets into the bowl,
into the pool. Drops. No, this joke is we drop the kids off at the pool. I dropped 2 kids off at the pool. My 2 kids. And they went splash.
And next week on Leadership to Wealth.
Yeah. We have to lead with that. You have to lead with that one. That's the promo right there. For sure.
You were talking about that McDonald's. I remember, and this is going to sound funny, but we used to take the bus down by the McDonald's. We'd get off there. There was a grocery store called Peary's. Shout out to Peary's from back in the day. There was a grocery store there.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And we would go and get fresh produce from there. And then my mom would take my brother and I, and we'd go there, and then we would walk across the street to McDonald's. And my kids think this is the craziest thing they've ever heard, but this is what my mom used to do. She would buy 1 package of small fries. You buy one small fries. They'd like, anything else? Nope. 1 small fry. And then we would carry the bags, and she would give us a fry. We each got a fry, and we'd keep walking, and then she'd give us another fry, and we would eat that 1 package of fries on the way home as we're carrying the groceries home, and walking them back up the street. And my kids think it's crazy that, first of all, how cheap we were, but it's like, that's just what we had. we didn't have, that was a treat. That was my mom's way of giving us a treat, was us sharing one fries. I'm like, I'm not from, the 40s or the 50s or the Great Depression of the 30s, but that was just life. And that actually, now, if I look at it now, we're talking about what it was like thinking that we were poor at the time. What it developed in me was a certain sense of delayed gratification, that you don't have to have everything right now. And I think a lot of people, especially kids, aren't getting that right now. Everything seems to be right now, and they're being told by the media and everybody that you should have it right now. Do you see any of that when you're dealing with your students, that mentality?
Yeah. I say it for sure, right? Because this is why I do drop the nuggets, because I realize that one of the things I'm trying to tell them is that I'll even use myself as an example. I say, look at, this is where I started. I went from this, I did this in college. I was going to be doing this for a living. Then I went to do this job. Then I did this other job. Then I got tree trained, went to become a plumber. And now here I am as a teacher, right? So I think and I think plumbing was a dream job for me. And this is probably like a good dream job for me, I would say. Stuff before maybe wasn't so much, but I'd say you're not jumping. I try to tell them, you're not jumping from right from school into the dream job, right? The thing that you want. I mean, you might. There are people probably who like what they go from school. But I said you might even change. Your job might change a little bit. Your career might change a bit, because based on what mine changed a lot in major ways, right? So, even when I just talking to some of them the other day, I said, well, some of my students that I teach are what we call the post-secondary students, who are taking a year to learn basic plumbing. Sort of like what level one actual apprentices do when they go to school. So these guys haven't been out in construction. They're just learning about plumbing and basic stuffs and some theory behind it and all that. I said this is like basically to help them to start their apprenticeship. It's like a selling point to people to hire them. And I said that you might have a hard time finding an apprenticeship. Don't be afraid. Like, it might not happen, right? Because a lot of people are looking for people who are apprentices, but a little bit more experience, where you guys are basically brand new. And but I said, don't be afraid. Like I was talking to a student who said that they had another job working for a retail company, retail store, and it was part-time. He goes, I just don't want to leave this other part-time job here. And I said, and I'm looking for a apprenticeship. I said, I haven't found one yet. I said, no problem. And I said, he goes, actually, I have a friend of mine, or a friend of the family, who's in construction, and they want to give me a job, a part-time or full-time job. And I said to him, I said, okay, well, I said, what's the so let's put it this way. Let's say that they offer you the same money as you're getting paid the retail. Retail's part-time. This will be full-time, let's say, but you're getting paid the same. I said that will at least put you on the path to where you want to go by switching that job. Okay, because that retail job is it gets paid. It's a low-paying job. I said, if that construction job fails, you can always go back to another retail job. Worst case scenario, right? So yes, you're getting paid the same, but you're putting yourself in a situation now where you work for a construction company. Yeah, you might be a laborer. You're not a plumber yet, but you're going to be working around other tradespeople, and you're going to make contacts and stuff, right? Which might lead to an opportunity. Like, as you always say, the conversations of today lead to the opportunity of tomorrow. So you might be talking to one guy one day who's a plumber on the job that you're working at, and all of a sudden, next day he says, "Hey, buddy, I know you were talking to me the other day, and I see how good you work it. You're just a plumbing apprentice." That's how it might happen. It really might just happen that way, and it does happen that way sometimes, right? And I said, so don't be afraid. It's not going to come to you right away. So don't be afraid. Yeah, you might. Some of my students do get the apprenticeship right away, but I said, even when you have the apprenticeship, by the time you're done the apprenticeship, you may not like where you are, who you're working with, right? Yeah. But I said the number one priority of people who are working right now, people who are getting apprenticeships right now, is you want to get apprenticeship started and you want to get it completed. Because once you get it completed, then you have your license, right? You have your license, and you can do what you want. You can start your own company. You can move to a different company if you don't like the company you're at. So I just let them know that it's not going to happen right off the hop. Like, don't be, and some might. So I know sometimes some of them don't buy it, right? They go, yeah, okay, sure, right. But a lot of them are like, okay, I didn't really realize that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I guess I'm like the Yoda, right? Whatever they do kind of believe me a little bit. I'm the wise Yoda, right?
Well, it's interesting. I was talking to one of my investors, someone who's also, they want to learn more about real estate and real estate investing. They're fairly new into it, and one of the things that we were talking about was, learning where you can, right? And you do this, you learn a little bit here, you learn a bit there. I said, but one of the things you'll learn if you really want to get into this, as they do, I said, is it's really important, the questions that you learn to ask. And most people will, they right off the bat, they'll be like, I can't afford this, right? In the world of real estate investing, they'll be like, I can't afford this. And I said, you have to start a discipline where you start asking, how can I afford this? And I said, and then another level up is when you start asking the question, who can help me to figure out how to buy this, or how I can afford this? And because one of the things that I've learned, and I think you kind of touched on it there, is there is so much more that opens up in life when you ask the question of who rather than the question of how, right? Because as you're learning, you're growing your network. Hey, who can help me on this path to go to the next step is really a powerful question in your arsenal as you're coming up, as you're growing. And I wish someone had taught me that sooner, that to take all of those into account, because it'll really help you move along in your career.
Yeah, and I know that we've all experienced this COVID thing this past year or so. How long? I don't know how long it's been going now, but it's been going for a while. Yeah. Is that I got to a point in my career where in teaching that I was going to kind of do this anyways, and I think COVID kind of helped me accelerate it. Was that I started building up as I call it, my community of practice, right? So I reached out to, like, as I joke, I rediscovered the internet, like I didn't know it was already there, right? And I said, you know what? I got to teach online now. I've never taught online. I've been teaching for 5 or 6 years. I think I'm a pretty good teacher, but this is kind of brand new, right? This is not totally new. I know how to teach, but I don't know. Is there anything I need to know? I don't know what I need to know, right? Right. And that's why I started reaching out. Like I started, and it's not even like, I think sometimes we reach out and we try and get that network of people around us who can help us, is that we have to be thinking even broader. Like my situation, I was thinking locally at my own college, right? My own colleague and stuff. I said, you know what? There's the internet. So, I'm probably like yourself, a little bit on the social side, on the social media. And I started making contacts all across Canada and even in the US. And eventually I started my own group. It was just like plumbing professors that came together. And last year we had we called the community of practice. And I'm a kind of a shy guy, even though I like to talk a lot. But I say, okay, I'm going to get everybody together, but no one's going to want to talk, right? No one's going to want to lead the way because, right, everybody just wants to sit there and listen, right? But I brought us together because I thought, here we can all sit together. We can all share our experiences about what we know and what we don't know right now, about how we can approach this teaching online, because we all teach the same stuff, right? So maybe Tim out in BC knows something that I don't know that he can share with me, right? Or there's a guy down in the U.S. or John down in the U.S. there. He used to teach in Canada, but now he teaches in the U.S. But maybe he's done online teaching or whatever. And some people had done it, right? And I can remember doing it. It was like, everybody's like, oh, thanks, Dad. This was great, because it's, first of all, we broadened our network of stuff. Like we think we're good teachers, but now by connecting together, we can now really up our game. Like we can, take it to that level, right? And that's why I got, not to do a little shameless plug here, but I started my own podcast called Trades Educator. And as I told some of my friends the other day, I said it was me being cheap. I didn't want to pay for education. So a best way to educate myself was to start a podcast. And I bring other educators on, whether it be some were a skilled trade, but some were at university teaching, like say German studies. Other ones were teaching this at university and whatnot. I said, because at the end of the day, I said, you're an educator. Whether you're educating in college, university, or grade school, you're teaching somebody. We're all teaching. just a matter of what grade level, and that's about it, right? And what topic we're teaching. But at the end of the day, we can all learn skills from each other resources, right? So yeah, so that's what I did.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Tell me, what was that like, and what have you gotten out of doing that?
Well, I've definitely learned a lot of different things that I didn't even know, right, that were out there. And the other, because I don't know about yourself, especially in the teaching profession. There's a lot of professions. There's always these kind of like workshops or conferences you go to, like, right? Yeah. And people are presenting. There's all these. There's a keynote speaker, and there's all these little breakout sessions. But the best thing that I always liked about those things was the kind of like the little hallway conversations with people, other colleagues in the field, right? And that's where I seem to always get the most out of. Yeah, there might be a keynote speaker or somebody who a session was good. I'm not saying they were all bad, but it was those little conversations with the other average person like myself doing the same thing, maybe in a different location. And I think at the end of the day, over the last year, it's made me a better educator. So wow. I'm better at what I do. And even though some of the skills that I've learned, even though as COVID changes and hopefully goes away permanently, that we go back sort of more face to face and maybe not as much online, I know that some of the stuff that I learned, I can still use then. And I think one of the things I learned from that group, as well as from even my students over the time or last while, is to have a little more empathy for everybody about what's going on, right? Okay. Because I mean, we're in the COVID world, right? And I knew that like some of my students in the past would tell me stuff like, private stuff, right? This is going on. My father, so my father's dying or whatever. Like really deep, like hard stuff that they're going through, that they're trying to get through trying to do their education. Because I always told them that we have services at the school that help with these sort of things, because we never know what's going to happen in life, right? Something tragic might happen when you're trying to educate yourself, right? Or whatever you're doing. And that's when I realized that, there's a lot of teachers out there that worry about people cheating and stuff and like this. I'm like, and it's stressing people out, right? Why are you worried about cheating and stuff? I said, because I started to myself, people in my field and in certain other fields, we don't know everything. So sometimes we use resources. In my field in plumbing, we use a code book. We go to the code book. When I'm out in the field, the code book isn't hidden in a drawer somewhere, and I have to try and remember it. If I don't remember it, I go and because of my experience, I'm able to look it up and go, okay, that's the code. Okay, that's what I got to do. Because I haven't done this for a while, I might have not remember how to do it. So people were worried about this kind of stuff, and also just kind of having empathy for people, because there's a lot more stuff going on that we don't know about. And then as the COVID world changed, we changed the COVID world. Like I would think to myself, as I was like on like with I am with you right now, I'd be like talking to my students over the camera, talking on live from my house to their houses, and in the background I had 3 boys, fighting, trying to learn online from home that I was trying to teach. A dog barking, right? All this kind of like stuff going on. A lot of stuff going on to keep focused on when I'm trying to teach a class, right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you know what? So do my students. They may have kids at home. Some of them do have kids, right? They're a little bit older. And some of them had part-time jobs working in retail, or not retail, in the like your grocery stores and stuff like that. So they were working more hours as in the early days, remember grocery stores were always very busy, right? The toilet paper was selling off the shelves like crazy, and right. So I had students who were working those jobs, and now we're working more hours because they needed the money. They're like, they got extra hours. Of course, they wanted to take them, right? And then they were trying to find that school balance and work balance, right? But I've learned so much just from having that professional kind of like community. Like I call it the community of practice. People call it community practice. Is that it just kind of it keeps you grounded, but it also keeps you kind of up to date on things, right? So I think it's something good that no matter what kind of field you're in, it's just definitely good. It just to go to check in with people. It could be kind of informal, where it could be if we're able to with no COVID restrictions, like say let's all meet together and let's go hang out at the pub and we'll talk about talk shop, as they say, right? Talk about our field or it could be more formal, like over Zoom call or something like that. And I think it's amazing how much you can learn, because you broaden it even further, right? Because the experiences we have in Ontario might be different than they have in BC.
Mm-hmm.
and they may have some nugget of knowledge that we don't know. Depending what field, no matter what field we're in, they might have that little bit of something that we go, oh, that's pretty cool, right? I never thought about that, and yeah, because for the end of the day, like I said before, when anything I've done, I've tried to do it the best. Whatever job I've ever had, I've tried to do it to the best possibility, right? So possibility,
Yeah.
best possibly I can, right? So
yeah.
So
Well, it's those sidebar conversations are immense. It's amazing what happens when you have some of those. You can have a larger conversation with people, but then sometimes it's just that little sidebar conversation. Someone says, well, you know what, actually this and this, and you're like, really? Oh my goodness. And you start and you ask them tell me more about that, and like you're sharing, there's just something that you learn and you're able to add to your learning and to your experience, right? And I really appreciate what you're talking about when it comes to empathy, because I remember having a manager who talked about, when you assess people, you have to take into account what's going on in their life, what's happening with them. Were they a great employee all of this time, and now did something happen? What's changed, right? Or have they always been like this, right? Being able to look at people, and I remember him saying something about actually appreciating, an employee that was married or had kids. Because he talked about, he said when someone's married and has kids, they've got other people that depend on them, and they can't be a complete idiot, because they've got continual feedback from the wife and kids that's trying to refine them, right? And so learning to take things, that person is going to learn to take things into account. And so, I think a lot of people think that getting married or having kids can be a hindrance on their careers, when really we can see that it can actually really help your career, because you can have empathy for people, because you are going through all of these different spaces in life, right? That's part of what life is and getting older. I mean, like from the days of playing on the playground and, Monsieur Harry Steele saying, you have to push the ball, you have to push it.
Yeah, good.
Remember him? He was the soccer coach, right?
Oh, yeah.
Push the ball.
I remember, because I got in trouble because I swore at him.
Oh my goodness!
I got suspended from the team in grade 8. Yeah, and then all of a sudden I got put back on the team after a couple of losses. But anyways, it's not a side story, but no, good memories though. Good memories. Mr. Steele, I don't think he's around still, but
that's unfortunate.
But yeah, because the thing is that when I started the podcast, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not doing this for like money. I laugh because right. I remember I was pulling up my stuff, like my hosting site and stuff, and whatever downloads, and I was like, well, that's pretty good down. Like I'm happy with that, right? And at least I'm not doing it just for myself. Somebody else is getting something out of it, hopefully, right? Yeah. And I remember my little guy coming up, my James coming and goes, "Oh, Dad, you ain't gonna make any money off of that. That's not enough subscribers, or that's not enough downloads, or whatever." I'm like, son, if I wanted to make money, I wouldn't have done a podcast on education. I don't know if that's a moneymaker, but at least I don't think it would be a moneymaker. But I said that's why and mind you, I've just recently given in. I'm actually going back to school in April, doing a master's in arts and learning and technology. So I'm doing my one of my what do you call it? I guess my bucket list. I never did a degree in a university, but because of my experience and what I've done, I was able to get into the master's program. So fingers crossed, I'll be okay. But I'm giving her a go. So I've given in. I've given in. I'm actually paying money now for some education experience. So as well.
So. And what's the dream there with regards to doing your master's in that?
it's kind of there's a bunch of different folds. So one is just because I want to do it for me for the bucket list.
Yeah.
So if that's the only thing that comes out of it, I would be happy with that. The other thing is, as even when I did my plumbing, when I finished my plumbing, I had my kids. My kids were young, but my oldest was just old enough to go and see me graduate. So I'm doing it for them to see that the dad can do it, and sometimes you can do it later in life because you don't be afraid. And the other reason why I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to potentially advance myself beyond just a professor. So I'm looking at it as future goals as associate dean or dean of a school.
Wow.
So
Wow.
who knows? There's not that many of those jobs. As you go further up, obviously, and anything, there's less and less positions and more and more people fighting for them. So
yeah.
Because I have a dream. I don't know most schools or college universities, the deans that represent usually each school usually have a background in something that relates to that school, like a school of business, some kind of business background. And so the school usually the schools of trade don't usually have too many people at that level with a trades background. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it too, just to. Because I don't know if you've ever heard me say this before, Neil, but I don't have a degree, but I have a 5-year apprenticeship, and it's a Red Seal. And before the day I die, I hope that one day that it is fully recognized just as equally as a 4-year degree. That's my goal. Because I'm big on education. I'm more on education than I was when I was younger. That's for sure. Back in high school, I don't think I would be so big on education. But I'm also big on the fact that being obviously in the skilled trades, that especially seeing with my son, I don't know if you remember back in the day, I never remember seeing too much promoted about the skilled trades as a pathway per se.
Right.
I'm sure it was recommended to some people saying, "Hey, you're not too bright. You might want to think about this." Right, quietly in the corner, maybe they told them. But even when I see it
back then, it was for dummies. Dummies went to. The trades. Skilled trade. Ha ha ha. Yeah, it's trades, right?
Yeah.
They were like, that meant you weren't smart enough to go to university.
Yeah, right. Or even college for that matter, just a community college or whatever, right? So, but even now, I look at these days when even my son, when they talk about their pathways coming out of high school, it's still they show university. Like at his school, they were showing university first, then college, and they're showing, and they have a thing that they give them lots of links to give them lots of resources about universities and college, not just about the different ones, but all the different things you need to know about how university works and all that stuff, right? And then they came down the third one, as I call it, their consolation prize was the pathways into apprenticeship, right? And then I'm like, with hardly any information, I'm like, how is people supposed to understand? Because I know that anybody who doesn't know about apprenticeships, when they come to my school, let's say for an open house, let's say the parents come with the kids, they don't understand how you become a plumber, how you become an electrician. I'm like, you go to school, you do school, right? And but there's a hands-on learning part, and there's a school learning part. But so it's a little bit of passion for me to about it. So I'm a little I don't want to get fired up on us now because I'll be going for hours.
Well, I'll tell you, I almost became an electrician because of Tony Esposito. Shout out to Tony. His brother was an electrician, and he, of course, ended up going down that route and became an electrician himself. And I was pretty close to following him down that road. It just seemed like fun, and because I remember him taking me to a couple of sites and stuff like that back in the day. I didn't end up going down that route, and I'm sure on cold winter's days, I'm glad that I didn't go down that route. But having said that, you're right. It wasn't promoted back then as much. And I think we're seeing the results of that. There's a shortage in the skilled trades. And now, as a result, the skilled trades are able to charge significantly. And especially in this market, oh my goodness, they're making great money, probably better money than a lot of their professors at this point. Being out there, right? So,
I know know a couple of guys who are have companies. One is a larger company, one's like a smaller kind of local company, and they actually give us feedback on our program, right? About what's going on, what the new trends are, right? And they were talking about, like, goes, actually, both of them were scared about what was going to happen for COVID, what was going to happen to their business. He goes, the one guy who has a small company, he does like more like renovations, like kitchens and bathrooms for homes. He goes, business is through the roof. Like, he's the owner, and he's actually working on the tools himself now because he needs somebody else, right? The demand is, he goes, people are staying home now, so now that they see their ugly washrooms in their kitchens, and they're not flying away now. They have, like, I know you mentioned. I heard you mention the other day, and I don't know if it was on Noon with Neil or your podcast, but about how people have all this money, right? That's been right. They didn't.
Yeah.
If they're working, if they've been still working, they've been still collecting all that money, and they're trying to find a place to spend it, right? They can't do the entertainment. They can't do their traveling. So
they're not spending money at the bars. They haven't been going out as often. They've, the money on the gyms, the memberships, all of those things. They're not doing half of those things that they were spending money on. So amazingly, all of a sudden they have money stored up.
Yeah. And then that's where the guys who are doing it because they have so much work, they can ask for more money because they got lots of work, right? And then the people who are like, okay, I guess so, because I got extra money lying around, I guess that's what I got to pay, right? But it's a crazy time. It's a crazy time. That's why I know that I don't mean to ramble on you, Neil, there, but that's why I just saw about recently, just on my LinkedIn, I put because I've been getting asked by people about consulting, so I'm thinking about even starting consulting on the side as like a plumber and consultant. There's a couple of different ways of doing it, and I know that we've had some private chats on the side there that I haven't followed up on recently, but I will be following up on. Because I started realizing to myself that whether it be teaching, community of practice, whatever you're doing, you need to surround yourself with people and knowledge and right. Whether you're a single business person, you still have mentors, or you've got people from advice for people, or you worked at a different company before and then you move on, or you have a group of people that come together and form a company, but you bring all that knowledge together, right? So I'm thinking there might be a place for me with my knowledge to in the investment world, as they say. So I'm thinking about it. Anyways, I'm starting to think about it a little more. Anyways, but that's a conversation we'll have another day, probably.
Well, there opportunities abound, and I think one of the great things is that there's no such thing as being too old for any of it. Wherever you are in your journey, the opportunities that are in front of you are probably because you're at that stage, and if you're willing to open yourself up a little bit more, then larger and bigger opportunities can open up to you. And I think we talked about it last year and during COVID, as you were talking about doing the podcast, and I remember us having a couple of conversations, and at a point in time when many people were in a very restrictive place, you chose to be open-handed. You chose to, reach out to people. You chose to be a representative of connection, of empathy, of all of these things. And I think we've seen some amazing. It's amazing to see how people have rallied around and been interested in hearing and sharing information in your journey. I think you've just really, that vulnerability has won. As Gary Vee always talks about, authenticity and realness will win out over, the shysters and, the people that are just trying to win for themselves. And I think you're good proof of that. So I definitely look forward to following your journey as you get into consulting and all those other things that hopefully we get to talk about in the sidebar conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's true, because our good friend of me, my wife's had said to us early on in our kind of our journey, said, you know what, your blessings will come, because he's a very religious person. So your blessings will come. So all the good things that you're doing and all the good work that you're doing, as you struggle on, you think that you don't see the light, at the end of the tunnel. And it's true. Like, to this day, like I'm like, you know what, we were good friends with her still. I'm like, I said, yeah, you were right. You I mean, there was times where I felt frustrated, but you know what? But I would never change it, because it's about I think it's about doing the right thing and being a good person and doing the right thing. Yeah, it comes back to you in spades. Like, that's like, it's like you're sowing you put the sow in the seed, right? You're watering it
Yeah.
every day. It's
Yeah.
it's like an investment, right? It's coming, it sits there, right? And eventually it grows, and then you say, thank you very much, right? You're like, I'm happy that it's here now. So
yeah. Wow. I want to give one final shout out to Miss Seawack and Mr. Hagen and the whole St. Thomas More crew. We're representing for you guys. And Ed, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you just sharing what this journey has been like for you, and getting to this point, and even sharing that there's more to come. I really appreciate that. I think it's something that we need to hear more of, and hear more, especially as we see so much out there about creating divisions, and here you are being a force of connection in the world, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for coming on the show today.
thank you, Neil. It was great being on. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Leadership to Wealth. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later.